Hey guys, this is Hemant from Edureka. Welcome to this session on AWS integration with DevOps. Now, AWS and DevOps are the most trending terms out there in the IT industry right now. And today in this session, I'm going to explain each and everything in detail from scratch from you, as in what is AWS, what is DevOps, and how can these two technologies be used together. Right? So let's go ahead and discuss the agenda to understand both these two terms. So first in this session, we are going to discuss what is AWS and then move on to discuss what is DevOps. After that, we are going to discuss some of the most prominent tools of DevOps which are used in the industry, such as Docker, such as Selenium, such as Jenkins, etc. And I'm going to show you guys how you can use these tools together to form the development lifecycle. Right, so in the hands-on section, I'm going to teach you guys how you can create or simulate the whole development life cycle from the point a developer commits a program to the point it gets automatically deployed to a prod or test server via the Selenium software, which basically tests the server automatically, right? And these prod servers and test servers are actually going to be hosted on AWS. All right, so guys, this is what our agenda is for today, and this is what we're going to do today. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and start with the session by the first topic, which is what is AWS. So guys, AWS is a cloud services platform. So it's a cloud services platform on which you have services like database, you have services like compute, cloud security, cloud monitoring, networking, file system, content delivery, etc. Right? So basically AWS rents you servers. So instead of buying your own servers, you can rent servers from AWS and use them at the minimum price of $0.03 per hour. Right? That is the kind of pricing AWS has to offer. So if you need a machine to work on and you don't want to buy a machine which is probably you need a machine, say you need a 16 GB machine with 8 GB of graphics card, and you don't have that machine right now with you, right? You can rent this kind of machine from AWS at the minimum price possible, and whenever you're done with it, just close that machine and you just pay AWS for the time you use that machine. For example, you use that machine for say 2 hours. You just pay AWS for the price of those 2 hours, and that is it. That is all the commitment that you have to give to AWS. Right? So this was about AWS and the whole of how the cloud industry actually works. And AWS has to offer a lot of cloud computing services. So it offers services not only in compute, but also offers services in database. It offers services in content delivery, file system, networking, cloud monitoring, cloud security, etc. Right? So this is the whole ecosystem of AWS. And every day they add new and new services which cover probably everything which is out there in the IT world, right? So this was about AWS. Let's go on and discuss what is DevOps. So guys, DevOps is not a technology, it is actually a fashion which is being followed. It's a revolution which came in the past years. Now, what is DevOps exactly? It is actually the merging of the development team and the operations team. So earlier when DevOps was not there, there was always a constant war between these two teams, that is the development team and the operations team. The developers used to develop the application, it used to run on their machines, but when the operations people used to upload it on the servers, it didn't run over there. Right? So this was just a basic problem that had to be solved. There were numerous other problems as well that both these teams had to suffer. Right? But with the introduction of DevOps, with DevOps came a lot of tools and it solved all these problems. It created a bridge between the development teams and the operations teams so that they can collaborate with each other and work on the same application that they're supposed to, right? The developers and the operations basically work on the same application, right? The developers develop that application and the operations team just upload that application on the prod servers or on the test servers so that it gets available to the world or for the developers to test. This is basically the job of operations people, right? Now, with the use of DevOps tools, now developers and operations team can work smoothly. And how they can do it, I will show you in a bit when we'll discuss the DevOps tools. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and understand what are these different tools and what do they actually do. So the first tool is Git, right? So what is Git exactly? So Git is a version control system, which is basically used to log any kind of change that you make to your code, right? For example, you have a package in which you have your code. So the first time you commit your code automatically gets uploaded onto Git. When it gets uploaded onto Git, say tomorrow you change something in your code and you say, okay, I'm committing my code again. So no other copy of your code is actually being deployed on the Git servers. What happens is Git recognizes what changes are there and it implements those changes on the Git servers. All right. So this is just one feature of what Git does. The other feature, what happens is, say I have a project that I want other developers to contribute to, right? So there's a concept in Git which is called branches. All right. So I'll have a master branch. So the master branch basically means the master file, master folder where my main project is, and each developer can create his own copy of that master branch or master folder and work in his own folder. For example, there are three developers, developer A, developer B, and developer C. So developer A can copy the master folder, developer B can copy the master folder, developer C can copy the master folder, and then work on that project. Now, all these three developers will commit their own version of the projects, and as an owner of that project, can see which of these three versions I would like to use in my main project, right? So all these three developers would have made some changes, and whichever developer's work I like the most, or whichever developer's work I feel is the best, I will take his folder and integrate it with the master folder, in the sense that now the master folder becomes the extended version which the developer C made, right? And all of this is possible. So it basically removes the confusion as to, which version or which part should I now integrate, or how should I integrate it into the master project. Everything it removes, and it gives you a clear way of versioning your software application. So this was about Git, right? This next tool is called Docker. Now, Docker is again a very interesting and a very important tool which basically gives you your own environment to work in. For example, you have a Windows system, right? And you're creating an application for, say, Linux servers. Say your prod servers are Linux servers, right? So what you can do is you can download a Docker container for a Linux machine. For example, we want the Ubuntu flavor of Linux in Docker. So you just download the Docker container for an Ubuntu machine. And when you run that container is basically the Ubuntu operating system. All right. And it can run inside your Windows machine. You can deploy your application inside this Docker container. And the best part about this Docker container is if you copy this Docker container and run it in some other machine, it will work exactly the same as it was working in the previous machine. That is, all the project dependencies, all the project libraries, whatever were related to your project which was running inside the Docker container also get copied along with that container. So the problem of, when the developers said that it is running on my machine, why isn't it running in your machine, gets solved using this tool, right? And it's an awesome tool, guys, because like I said, if you have a Windows machine, you can actually work in the Ubuntu machine or Ubuntu environment using the Docker containers. And also the Docker containers are as low as 55 MB. There's a Linux version of Docker container called the Alpine OS, all right? And it's as low as say around 50 or 60 MBs of operating system, right? So you can have that Linux environment in just 60 MBs of data. How cool is that, right? And this is what Docker container is all about. The next tool is Selenium, right? So Selenium is an automation tool which automates the path of testing, right? If you have a website, for example, and the job of the tester is to enter some test cases, in the sense, he enters some values for username, for some password, he clicks on login, and then he checks whether the login succeeded or not, right? See, if the login succeeded, he says test pass. If the login fails, he said test failed, right? Now this can be automated using Selenium. So you give Selenium whatever inputs you want to give. The Selenium tests those input on whatever application that you have specified, logs the response from it, and then decides whether the test passed or failed. All right, so it gives you a quick feedback if a developer is developing an application. If he, before submitting his application, he wants to check if his application is passing all the test cases or not, he can basically just run his application in the Selenium software and check whether his application is working or not, right? So it's an excellent tool for automated testing. Then came Jenkins. So Jenkins is the master of all tools. So basically what it does continuous integration. So it integrates all these tools. That is, it integrates Docker, it integrates Git, it integrates other tools, it integrates Selenium. So you can use all these tools together using Jenkins. So what Jenkins does is, for example, if we were to talk about the development lifecycle, say I commit a code to Git, right? And I say whenever a commit happens to the master branch. So in the case when developer A, developer B, developer C, all implemented or gave me their own versions of projects, and I decided, okay, so developer C's work is something that I want to be tested on the testing servers. So I'll say, okay, so developer C, I will integrate into my master branch. It is okay according to me, right? The moment I integrate into my master branch, Jenkins will get to know, okay, that something has been committed to the master branch in this particular repository, right? So it fetches all the files from that master branch or copies all the folders and files from that master branch and puts it on the test server inside a Docker container, right? So I can specify what version of Docker container I want, where exactly do I want those files to be stored, and I can specify all that using my Jenkins tool, and my website will be deployed inside that Docker container, which is exactly the same environment as of the developers, right? So that problem of not working will get solved, right? So once it runs in the Docker container, the next thing that I can do with Jenkins is I can tell it that, okay, so my website is now deployed, it is hosted, now I want to test it, right? So using the same tool that is Jenkins, I can also run a Selenium test on that particular website saying, so these are the test cases. Please see if this can be solved. Please see if this gives a positive response, right? So again, now all of these tasks are done automatically. So once the website gets deployed, it automatically moves on to the testing part. So it tests whether the website is working or not. So if the website gives a positive or a successful message, it pushes the application to the prod server automatically. If the server or if the test fails, it has an option to first of all roll back everything on that test server, that is, it deletes the workspace, and at the same time it can also give an email to whoever committed to the master branch saying that your application has failed for so and so reason. This is the error that you got on the test server. All right. So this is how the whole of development lifecycle, that is from the point a developer committed to the Git program till the point where it got tested and deployed on the prod server, is automated. All right. And this is what DevOps tools are all about. Now, this is the hands-on part, guys. This is what we are going to do today in this session. So first, I'm going to create a Jenkins server on which I'm going to host all my applications. I will put all the commands that are to be supposed to be. I'll do all the configuration. On the second server, that is the test server, I'll have my Docker containers, or I'll have my Docker software. So my Jenkins will basically deploy the Docker container that I'll be mentioning, that is mentioned by the developer, right? He will deploy the website along with it inside the Docker container. When the website is hosted, it will do a Selenium test on this Docker container. And if everything goes fine, it will go ahead and push it to the prod server. And at the same time, once all these things are done, I can continuously monitor it. So this is where the continuous feedback loop is, right? You can continuously monitor what is the feedback of the users which are coming in. For example, you say, okay, so you know what, I'll just deploy my website only for the users of India, right? So if you're a big company, you decide, okay, so let's test our product first on the Indian audience. So you deploy a product and you take the feedbacks as to how the whole user experience is going. What do the users say? You listen to all the feedbacks from different social websites. You take that feedback, you integrate that feedback, and now you want to improve your application, right? So you take in the feedback, you improve your application, and again you commit it to the master branch, and again it gets deployed to the prod server. This is the whole continuous development life cycle, right? Once your product is done, it never gets finished. It is continuously developed as and when we get the feedbacks and we upgrade our application. Right? So this is how the whole life cycle works. And this is something that we are going to implement today in this session. Right? So just give me a second. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a Jenkins server. Right? For that, let me go to my AWS management console. So this is so basically first I'll go to my AWS website, that is aws.amazon.com. Right? I'll log into my management console. So just give me a second. Alright guys, so this is my management console. I'll just go to my preferred region, so it is Oregon. I'll go inside EC2. So like I said, EC2 is a service which gives you servers, it gives you raw servers to work on, right? So I basically want Ubuntu machines to work on. So what I'll do is I'll launch an instance and I'll select the type of operating system that I want. So I want an Ubuntu operating system. I'll select that of system, right? I'll select the kind of processor that I want for my system. So this is a demo, and I think probably the T2.micro system will do. So if you guys are on a free tier or you have just registered for the AWS account, and if you don't want to be billed, you can probably select the T2.micro instance, which is going to be free for the next 1 year from the time you sign up on AWS. All right. You select this instance and you click on next, right? Now, this is something that you don't have to worry about if you are a beginner on AWS, and if you want to do this demo, just click on review and launch and click on launch in the end. Now, there is a concept called key pair, which is basically a public key, private key kind of setup in which you get a key using which you can authenticate yourself to use that instance. So there is no password which is required to connect to your instance, right? So what you can do is you can either create a new key pair, that is, you can go here and choose create a new key pair, just name your key pair and select download. You will get a private file, you will get a PEM file, right? And using that file, you can connect to your servers. Now the problem here is that you will get a PEM file, and for connecting to your Ubuntu server using a software called Putty, you have to use the PPK version. So let me show you how you can actually create a new key pair. So let me create a key pair called Edureka DevOps, right? Let me download this key pair. So I have this key pair now, and I can click on launch instances. So this will basically deploy my server on AWS, and you can check your servers over here in the EC2 console by going inside your running instances. And here you can see my server is being deployed. It's in the pending state right now. So let me name it as Jenkins. All right. And I can deploy more servers just like this. All I have to do is I'll click on launch more like these servers, and I'll click on launch. I'll select the same key pair which I've just created and click on launch instances. So again, the same configuration server will get deployed, and I can see it over here in the EC2 console. All right, it is getting deployed over here. Let's name it as test server. All right, so my test server is now running, my Jenkins server is now running. Now to connect to these instances, all you have to do is you have to go to a software, or you have to download a software called the PuttyGen software. You run the software, and basically this will ask you to copy the PEM file over here. You can probably just drag and drop the PEM file in this tool. Let's load this PEM file. So I'll just go to desktop, or I'll go to downloads, and I'll just select the PEM file that I've just downloaded. So this is the PEM file. So it says successfully imported. Awesome. Now what I have to do is I have to save the private key from this. So I click on save private key. I'll click on yes, and let me save it on desktop as Edureka hyphen DevOps. And as you guys may notice, it is now being stored in the form of PPK. So earlier the extension was PEM file, now the extension is PPK. Let's click on save. So this will now save my PPK file on my desktop. Now all I have to do is I will run my putty software, right? I will copy this IP address. So let's say I want to configure my Jenkins server first. So I'll copy the IP address for this. I'll paste the IP address here, right? So this is my putty software. Now I'll go to SSH, I'll go to auth, and now I'll have to select my PPK file so that using it, it can authenticate to the EC2 server, right? So let me specify my PPK file. So it is Edureka DevOps. Here it is. Let me select it and let me click on open. And this will open my server. So whenever you launch an Ubuntu operating system, the login name is Ubuntu. You will just type in Ubuntu, and now I'm connected to my Ubuntu server. All right. So here is your Ubuntu server, guys. Let me see if I can make this text a little bigger for you. So here you go, guys. This is your Ubuntu machine. Now, the things that we are going to do on this server is first we have to install the Jenkins server. Now, for installing the Jenkins server, all you have to do is you have to run these commands. Now, for Jenkins to be installed, guys, the first thing that you have to do is you have to install Java. All right, so let's install Java on this machine. So first, let's update this machine. So I'll say sudo apt get update. So this will update this machine. Now once the machine has been updated, now the next thing that I'll do is I'll install Java. So here I go. This command will basically install Java on my system. Once Java is installed, the next thing that I have to install is this. So I have to add a key to the repository, right? So this command will basically add the Jenkins key for it to be installed. So my Java is being installed and this will install the key. With this, we can basically add some more values. Now we will update and now let's install Jenkins. So here we go. Now Jenkins is being installed on your server, guys. So just like give it some seconds and it'll be up and running. Now while this is being installed, there are some firewall settings that you have to do to your server. So for that, you just click on Jenkins and you will go to launch wizard. And over here, you can configure the inbound settings for your server. All right, so I'll click on edit. And over here, you have to basically open the ports for you to connect to your server in the sense that Jenkins is available on 8080 port. Right, so for the sake of simplicity, what you can do is you can select all TCP ports and you can basically open all the ports for yourself so that now Jenkins is available to you from your browser. All right, so let's go ahead. All right, so Jenkins is now installed on this particular computer. So now if I go to my instance, which is basically over here, I'll go to Jenkins. I'll select the IP address. I'll copy this IP address over here. I'll write colon 8080. I'll hit enter. And here you go. Here you have the Jenkins interface. All right. So the first time you install Jenkins, you will get this screen. Right. So you have to enter the administrator password. So all you have to do is you will copy this link that is over here. You will go to your terminal. You'll say sudo cat and you'll paste this address over here, and this will basically open or read this file and display it on the terminal as this initial admin password. All right, so here is the password. You can copy the password from here, go back to your screen, paste it here, and click on continue. All right, so your Jenkins has now started and it is up and running. Now the next screen, you have to install the plugins for Jenkins. So you can just click on install suggested plugins and it will install all the necessary plugins that are required for any default or any normal job that you want to run on Jenkins. Right, so it is going to install all these plugins for Git, for Ant, for Gradle, right? For mails, it is installing all these plugins. And while this is being installed, so we don't need this server anymore. Let us just close this server, right? The Jenkins server, or we'll be working from on the Jenkins server from here now onwards. Now let's set up our test server, right? So I'll select the IP address from here. I'll open the putty console. Let me select the key from here. So it's the same key as my Jenkins server, right? And it's on desktop. So I'll just type in AWS and then Edureka DevOps.ppk and I'll click on open. This in turn will create a connection to my server. Let me make the fonts a little bigger. All right. So let's type in the name for the server, which is Ubuntu. All right, so I'm logged in. Now let's see. So the first thing that I'll be doing is first let's update our server. So I'll say sudo apt get update. All right, so my server is being updated now. So while my server is being updated, let's see the next thing that we have to do. So first, let's install Docker on our system. For that, we have to run all these commands. So let's run these commands one by one. This will add the key. This will add this link to the Ubuntu repository. Now after this, we again have to update the computer. So let's do that. As you can see, these links have now been updated. Now let's check if our Docker entries are there. Yes, they are there. Now let's install Docker on this system. So this will now install Docker on this particular system. Let it get installed. The next thing that you have to do is for your Selenium. So for Selenium, you need to have a browser on your system, right? So let's install Chrome on this system. So we'll go back to this terminal. Let's install Chrome on the system. So let's press Y, and Chrome is now being installed on this particular system. Now let's go back and install the Chrome driver as well. So this will install the Chrome driver. All right, it's taking some time. Let's leave it for that. And let me set up my Jenkins server till then. All right. So my plugins have now been installed on my server. Let's give our server a username, my Jenkins server. So it's Edureka. Let me give the password. Let me again give the password. Let me give the full name for mine. That is Hemant Sharma. And let me give the email address, which is this. All right. Let me click on save and finish. All right, so Jenkins is ready now. So let me click on save. Let me save the username and password, and let's click on start using Jenkins. All right, so this is basically the default console that you get for using Jenkins. And before doing anything over here, let me complete the configuration for my test server. So my Chrome browser has now been installed. Now let's install Chrome driver on this. So this is the command for installing the Chrome driver. So let me paste it over here. Let me hit enter. All right, so my Chrome driver has now been installed. Also, we have to install Java on this system as well. So let us install Java as well. So Java is now being installed on the system. Why do you need Java on the system? Is first, your Selenium tests are basically jar files, right? So to install or to run jar files, you need Java on your system. Also, Jenkins would be connecting to the slave using the JNLP protocol, and for that you need Java again. All right. All right. So Java has now been installed on the system. Awesome. So let's go ahead and now configure Jenkins. Now the first thing that I would do in Jenkins is connect my slave to Jenkins. All right. For that, all you have to do is you have to click on Manage Jenkins. You have to click on Configure Global Security. All right. Now you will go down and you will click on random when you have JNLP agents. So if you want to connect to your slave using JNLP, you have to select this option and click on save. All right. So your JNLP has been selected. It has been set to random. Now the next thing that you have to do is you have to click on manage nodes. Once you click on manage nodes, you will click on new node. And let's name that node name as slave. So this will basically add your slave or connect your slave to your Jenkins. All right. So you'll click on permanent agent. You'll click on OK. Now you will select the remote root directory, the directory where all your files will be copied from Git. So let me specify it as Jenkins slash workspace. All right. We've specified it. And nothing else has to be configured here. Just click on save. All right, so my slave has now been configured. Now let's connect our server, our slave server, to this Jenkins. So for that, the first thing that you have to do is you have to download two files. So the first file is slave agent and the next file is agent, right? So both these files have to be present on your test server. And the way you can copy these files on your test server is using FileZilla. So let me open FileZilla, and now you have to have the IP address of your test server, which is this. Let me paste it on my FileZilla. Let me enter the username, which is Ubuntu. Let me specify the port number. And before that, let us open the ports for our test server as well, the way we did it for our Jenkins server. So, all right, everything seems to be configured here. Awesome. So basically, it's the same security group as of that of my Jenkins server. So it works for me. All right, so it has got the same settings. Nothing has to be configured here. I'll just go to EC2 dashboard, go to running instances, and let's connect to my Jenkins server. Now for that, again, over here, I have to go to settings. I have to specify where my private key is. So I'll click on add key file. I'll go to desktop. I will select the ppk file and it's added now. I'll click on OK and let's click on quick connect. So this will basically list the directories or the files which are there on this server. All right, now what I want to do is I want to copy these two files over here. So let's do that. So first let me rename them and let me delete the old files and let me rename this file as it is required on the server. So it's agent. Let me paste it on the server. Here it goes. Next thing is I want my slave file to be there as well. So this again has to be there on the server. So let me rename it as slave agent and let us copy it now to my Ubuntu server. Here it goes. All right. So now both these files are there on my server and you can actually see it over here. Let me clear the command console. Let me say ls. All right, so as you can see, both these files are now visible in your home directory. Now the next thing that you have to do is you have to run this command in sudo mode in your slave, and this will basically connect your instance to your Jenkins server. I'll hit enter and as you can see it is connected now. It says connected. I will just duplicate the session because now you cannot use it. The process is running in the foreground. I'll close this one. So this is basically another copy of that terminal. This is the same server I'll be working in. It's just another terminal. All right. And now if I go back to the list, I can see the cross has been removed, which basically means my slave is now connected to my Jenkins server. All right. So the next thing that we'll be doing is now we have to configure Docker. All right. Now, as I told you guys what Docker is, let me show you how you can use Docker or how Docker is exactly used. Right. So I'll say sudo docker images. So I don't have any images as of now. Now say I want another Ubuntu operating system inside this particular computer. So I'll say sudo docker run -it -d and then Ubuntu and then I'll click on enter. So it's unable to find the image locally. So what it is doing now, it is downloading the image from the repository. And as you can see, the image has now been downloaded. And what I'll do is I'll say sudo docker images. I'll take the similar ID. I'll say sudo docker run -it -d -p and then I'll say port 80 should map to port 80 and then I'll specify the container ID. Alright, so container is now running and let's now say sudo docker ps. I've got this container ID and let us, so I'll just have to go again inside my container. So I'll say sudo docker exec -it then the container ID and then bash. So I'm inside the container. I'll say service status. Let's see if our Apache service is running inside this container. Alright, so it says Apache 2.1 recognized service. Let us install the service. So it's sudo apt-get Apache 2 install. Alright, and now let me refresh this browser. I'll say service Apache 2 restart. All right. And as you can see, the Apache service is now running on this server. All right. So this is what we wanted, guys. This is what we actually wanted. We wanted the Apache service to be running from the container, and that is exactly what is happening right now. Right. So like I said, Apache is not installed on my computer. So if I do exit and I say service Apache 2 status, it says inactive. So there was no Apache 2 service formed, right? But if, like I said, my Apache service is now inside this container. Inside the container, that is an operating system, I have my Apache service, and from there, I'm seeing that Apache service over here because the port has been now matched, right? So the port 80 of my Docker container is being forwarded to port 80 of this server, and this server's IP address is this, and this is how I'm getting this Apache page. Awesome, isn't it? And now if I kill my container, that is if I just say sudo docker ps, right? And if I say this is the container ID and I say sudo docker kill and I right click it, I will no longer be able to access this Apache server because now the Docker container has been killed. All right. And similar is what we are going to do today as well. So with our website, what we are going to do is our website is going to be hosted inside a Docker container. And inside the same Docker container, we are going to have Apache service as well, right? And from a server, from a test server, we will be checking on Selenium on the localhost, that is the port 80. We will be checking whether whatever website is there on port 80, it is passing the Selenium tests or not. All right. So we have the Docker container ready. Let me show you how my Selenium script looks like. So this is how my Selenium script guys actually look like. So what is basically going to happen is my Chrome driver is basically there in this particular location of my Ubuntu server. It's in user, library, Chromium browser, and then the Chrome driver. Here it is, right? And basically what I'll be doing is I will be checking on the local host. So it will basically open the local host and it will check the following elements. It will find the login element login and it will send the key Hemant over there, right? Then we'll find the element called password and send these keys over here. And what is the website that we are testing this on? So this is basically the website. This is the website that we'll be checking these tests on. My Eclipse or my Selenium will enter in the login component. It will enter the keys Hemant. So basically this is my login component. All right, it will enter Hemant over here. It will enter the password, which is SDF over here, and then it will click on submit. All right, so it will look for an element which will be named click. So this is that element and it will click on it. So once we click on submit, we will get login succeeded, and then it will go down. It will look for an element called test. So this is basically that test element, and inside the test element, whatever text is there, it will going to store it inside the Hemant variable. This Hemant variable will then be compared to this string, which is login succeeded. If that is the case, it will pass the test. If that is not the case, it will fail the test. So this is the Selenium testing which we are going to do on this particular website. And this website is going to go inside the Docker container, inside the test server, and this job is going to be automated using Jenkins, right? So this is the whole of the things that we are going to do. Now, how exactly are we telling Jenkins what kind of Docker container do we want? You can check it over here. So let me show you the code that is going to be there. So this is the Docker file, guys. A Docker file is a file where we describe how our container or how our container is going to be. So let me open it using Notepad++. All right. So from a repo, there's a container or there's an OS that I've configured that is called Ubuntu new 1212. On basically this image, this Docker container image, I have installed Apache. All right, and it's an Ubuntu image. So what I'll be doing is I'll be adding my file. What is the file? This is the folder of my website, right? Inside this, I have all the files for my website. So basically, this folder I'm specifying over here, add this folder inside this particular directory inside my Docker container. So first, it will initialize, or it will download this container and initialize it. After that, it is going to add this particular folder to this particular directory in that container. Once it is done, it will run the Apache service in the foreground. That is, it will restart the Apache service once it has added the blob website in this particular folder. And once that is done, it will remove the pre-existing index.html, that is the Apache test page, from this particular directory inside my Docker container. All right, so these are the commands that are passing inside my Docker file, and this is what is actually going to happen. So let me close it. And this was about my Docker file. This was basically the Selenium test script that I've showed you. So basically what I've done is I've gone to my project, which is Selenium test. I've right clicked it. I've gone to export. I've selected runnable jar file. I've clicked on next, and this has basically exported or created a new jar file for me inside this particular destination, which is new folder 2 and then final.jar. And this is actually the same destination over here, that is esp new folder s2, and here is where the final jar file will be created once I click on finish. All right, so this is how you create a jar file for your Selenium test. And all these files I've created inside one particular folder. So this is my website folder files, this is my Docker file, this is my Selenium file, and this all is basically a Git directory. So what now I can do is I can right click here and click on Git bash here. This will basically open the Git command prompt over here, and now I can upload all these files to my remote repo that is on GitHub. Where is my remote repo? It is over here. So what I can do is I'll go here, I'll go to GitHub, to my repository, and here it is, guys. So you have my blob files, you have my Docker file, and you have my jar file as well. All right, so now what I can do is I can go back to this folder and I can make a change in the website so that you guys can see it. So what I can do is I can probably have this image in the background. So for that, what I can do is I'll go inside my index file and I will change this picture. So to say 12.jpg, I'll save it. I'll close this, and now I will go back and let me upload it again to my remote repo. So I'll say git status. This will probably show me that my index.php has now been modified. So I'll say, all right, commit this transaction. So I'll say git commit -m and say Edureka demo. All right. So my file has now been modified and it has been committed. All right. Sorry, so first you have to add these files to your branch, and now you will commit to your branch by saying git commit -m Edureka demo. All right, so it says one file changed, one insertion. Awesome. Now let me push it to my repository. So I'll say git push origin master, and when I press enter, this will basically be pushed to my remote repository. Now before I do this, let me create a job in Jenkins. So what I'll do is I will go inside my Jenkins and let me create a job. So that job will basically integrate each and every tool that we have discussed so far in this session. So I'll click on new item. I will give my job a name. Let's call it get build. All right, I will click on freestyle project. Let me click on OK. And this will in turn create a new job for me. All right, so my job has now been created. Now the next thing that I have to do is I'll say, okay, so I want to get a project and my project URL is this. Let me paste it in my git job. So from here it will get all the files, and I'll say restrict where this project can be run. I want to run it on the slave. All right, so it'll run on the slave server, and the source code management, it's on git, and here is the URL for the repository. Awesome. And where the build triggers, so whenever I'll be pushing my code to the master branch, it should run this job. And build environment, nothing is needed. Build step, I will execute a set of commands. What are those commands? Let me show you those commands. Right, so basically I'll be running. All right, so these are the commands that I want to run. Let me copy these commands and let me paste it inside my Jenkins command panel, and let me explain it to you. So the first thing that it'll do is it'll build the Docker file that I've specified from this particular directory. So my code from Git will get pasted to this particular directory. I specified Jenkins slash workspace, remember? Right? So my Docker file will be built from, so my Docker file is located in this directory. It will get built and it will be named as this particular image, that is hr slash new. All right. After this, I will run this particular image, that is sudo docker run. And basically when I'm building the Docker file, it will already take the website and put it inside the Docker container because I've specified everything inside my Docker file, remember? Now all I have to do is I'll run my Docker container and map it to port 80, right? So once it's mapped to port 80, the next thing that I want to do is I will copy my final.jar file, which is my Selenium file. I'll copy it inside my home directory, and then I will run this command, which basically runs the final.jar file as an Ubuntu user. All right. And then all these steps, once they are done, it will give me a success page if everything goes fine. All right. So let's click on save now. And this basically creates my job. Now, the next thing that you have to do is you have to configure the webhook in your GitHub if you want your job to be triggered automatically once you push your code to the master branch. For that, you will go to your repo, you'll go to settings, you'll go to webhooks, right? So there's already a webhook. Well, let me delete this. It's asking me for my password. Let me specify the password over here. All right. So I've deleted the webhook. Let me add a webhook now, right? And the payload URL, what you have to do is you have to give your IP address over here. And then after that, you have to add git webhook slash and then click on add webhook. So this will add the webhook. Let me edit it. So it's GitHub webhook. All right, let me update it. All right, so my link is working fine now. As you can see, it's green, so it can interact with the Jenkins interface. All right, the next thing that I'll be doing is, so my Jenkins, so my Git is now able to interact with Jenkins. My Jenkins is in turn able to, trigger the Docker jobs and trigger the Selenium job on my test server. And let's go ahead and now commit to my master branch. The moment I commit to my master branch, it'll automatically trigger a job over here. All right, so let me say git push origin master, which will basically push my website onto the GitHub repository. Right, I'll hit enter. All right, so my file has been pushed on my GitHub. All right, it's been done. Now I'll wait for my GitHub to pick up that job. So as you can see, my job has automatically been triggered over here and it is running that job now. One thing that I forgot to do, I had to kill the process that is already running, which is, okay, so there are no, so I've already killed it. Awesome. So let this job run. And probably if everything goes well, all my things will get configured automatically. My website will get configured automatically on my test server. And as you can see, it gives a blue icon, which means everything passed successfully. So I'll go to my console output, and here is your console output, guys. So as you can see, it deployed the Docker container, it ran the tests, and it went as successful. So if now I go, so this is the IP address of my server, remember? I just refresh it. And as you can see, the website is now deployed on my test server. And also my Selenium tests were executed on Jenkins. So that you can see again here in the Jenkins console output as well. Starting Chrome driver, it did all the tests and it came as success. Now say I close my database server. So basically my website is interacting with the database server. So what I can do is I'll go to my database server. Say this is my database server. Let me close the database server in AWS. So let me stop this database server. So I'll click on stop. I'll click on yes, stop now. And it is basically now stopping the server on AWS. So we can check the output over here first on localhost, and then we can trigger a job over there again. So let me enter the name, let me enter some value, and let me see if I'm being able to connect to the server. So it says login failed, right? So let us try. So if it says login failed, basically my test should fail when I run it on my GitHub server, right? So I'll go back to project and let me change something in the code. So let me come back to my index file and let me change this again back to the image, the background image it was, right? And let me again push it to my master. So I'll say git add dot git commit checking Selenium, right? I'll commit it and let's push it to my master now. So once this is pushed, it should in turn again trigger a build over here in Jenkins. So let's wait for the job to be triggered over here. Now before that guys, I have to kill the container. I'm sorry for that. So let me kill the container from here. So I'll say sudo docker kill the container. Otherwise, I'll show you the error what it gives. It will not be able to deploy the Docker container again basically. So as you can see, it says external connectivity on port is already allocated. So that basically means my container was running, right? So let me build the job again. So I'll just go back to the project. Let me trigger it for here only. So I'll say build now. So for the demo purpose, as you can see, it's giving me a red sign, which basically means the build failed, right? So it's running the test now again. It is deploying everything again. The website that is there on Git, it is deploying it again here. And let's see how it goes. So now probably everything has been deployed. It is checking whether the values entered, is it being able to connect to the database? And if it's not, it will give me an error over here. You can actually check the console output if you want. You can probably just go here to console output and you can see it has executed everything. It is executing the Selenium test now and it says finished failure. If you check the error, you can check the error over here and you can see probably what the error was. As you can see, it says no such element, unable to locate element, which basically means it was unable to locate my login successful element. And that is the reason it throwed an error. And this is what we wanted, right? So it has successfully deployed my website on that particular server. It has checked if everything is going fine. And then if it fails, it gives me a failure message. And as you can see in the console, it gives you a red sign. All right. You can also go ahead and specify what happens if your build is successful. So I can say add post build actions and I can specify to build other projects. So basically I can create one more project which just pushes my website to a prod server. Now when I click on build other projects, it will say trigger only if the build is stable. In the sense, if this build is stable, if this build goes fine, then trigger one more job. And that job would basically be to update this Git project on my prod server as well, so that it gets available to everyone. All right, you can specify it over here. Again, you can also trigger an email here. So you say email notification. You just click on that and send email for every unstable build. So whenever your build will fail, you will get an email on your specified recipient saying that the build has failed for so and so reason, and then you can check it. So that option can be configured from over here. All right. So with this, guys, we come to an end on this session. So today, let's see if we have covered everything. We covered Git. We saw how Git, we can configure Git to use with Jenkins. We saw how we can use Jenkins to trigger Docker. We also saw how we can use Jenkins to trigger a job on Selenium. We also saw how to connect a slave server to your Jenkins for where your basically your job will be deployed. And we also saw how to install all these tools from scratch. All right. So guys, this was the whole development life cycle. This is basically the way it works in the industries as well. And this is how the DevOps tools are useful in the industry. It basically automates everything. From the time a developer commits till the time it when goes on and gets deployed on the server, everything is automated. All right. So with that, guys, I'll take a leave from you guys. Thank you guys for attending today's session. I hope you guys learned something new today. If you like this video, please like, comment, and share this video to your friends as well and spread the knowledge. All right. So with that, guys, I'll take a leave. Have a good day ahead and goodbye.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply to them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to our Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!